So you want to be a millionaire. Well, in 2022, there's so much noise about how to achieve that, from NFTs and day trading and crypto and all these overnight successes that are kind of confusing. And that is not what we're going to talk about in this video. I want to share some practical things you can do starting right now to help you get closer to being a millionaire as soon as possible. We don't want to talk about what it's going to take if you become a millionaire over 35 years. We want to talk about how you can get there by the time you're 35. What could you practically do, and how in the world would you even go about that? That's what this video is. Let me share things I've personally learned and how I look at this from my own experience, and we'll dive into it together. All right, so welcome back to Joshua Talks Money. This is where we talk about all things personal finance. You know, I built and sold a tech company, which taught me a lot about money, the good and the bad. I'm sharing those lessons with you, the things I've learned and what I'm still learning. And if that sounds helpful, I would love for you to consider subscribing. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, maybe share this video with someone you think it could help, and I would be greatly appreciative of that. All right, so let's dive into this. You want to be a millionaire, but you don't want to be a millionaire 35 years from now. You preferably want to get there as quickly as possible. So let's talk about practical ways you can do that. And it first begins with understanding what is a millionaire. Well, quickly, that is someone with a net worth of $1 million or more, meaning when you take assets versus liabilities, you'll be able to have $1 million or more after that calculation. Now, I did a full video about calculating the net worth that you may have, and that is step number one. You should go watch that video. You can see how I calculate my net worth and why I actually do this every single week. You need to calculate your net worth and get a baseline of where things are. You can't hit the $1 million if you don't know where you are currently. You should know right now what your net worth is. So that's the first step. So you would calculate that and you would establish, this is where I can go. From that number, you then can quantify pretty closely the plan, both in dollars and time, to achieve the $1 million. And so I'm going to jump over to the computer and give an example of this through the lens of investing. I want to use this calculator to really talk about investing and the ROI over time. Now, let's start with a calculation that I kind of alluded to earlier that many people probably have seen, which is, hey, let's say you start investing when you're 25. You know, you're putting money into the stock market. Let's say you're investing $300 a month into the S&P 500, and you get 8% per year. So you can see the calculations here. Well, by the time you're 67, bam, there you go. You're going to be a millionaire. And that's what you hear, and that's what's, taught to so many people. And surprisingly, so few people actually do this. But this is a pretty sure way of, over your lifetime, getting to that number. But this is the number that we have a problem with. We don't know our life expectancy. We don't know what the future holds. Ideally, we want to become millionaires before this, much earlier, so we can enjoy that life. And so that's where I want to have some fun with these numbers with you all. And this is why it's so important to get your baseline, because with your baseline, you can plug in your own unique situation currently and start to do different scenarios like we're going to do here. So let's take a look at this same scenario, and this person decides, you know what, I'm going to actually double this for the same time period, all things the same, and you can see that doubles the output. So they're now going to have $2.4 million roughly by the time they're 67. But what's really neat is now we can start to mess with this number and pull back the age of retirement. We can look at something like, let's say 65. And when I run the math, same numbers here, we still have $2 million. Let's go to 60, 1.3. Let's go to 57, $1 million. So now by doubling that contribution from 300 to 600, this 25-year-old has shaved off 10 years, an entire decade of getting to $1 million. And so the $1 million is the goal, but obviously you see the longer this continues, the more compounding you have. And you can see that in this chart. You can just see this acceleration really taking off from the power of compounding. What happens if this person at 25 decides, you know what, I'm going to max out my 401k every year for the rest of my working time? Let's plug that number in. Let's actually jump back to 67, the original. Let's put 1,500. That's about roughly the monthly max for the current 401k contribution. Well, that's pretty significant, 6 million. And now let's start to shave numbers off this and go back to that 57 that we were at, 2.6. Let's go to, 50, 1.4. Let's go to, 45. Let's see where we're at there. Okay, so we're a tick below. Let's go 47 million. There we go. So now if he was maxing out, or he or she was maxing out the 401k at $1,500 a month, and they've just now shaved 20 years, 2 decades off the time to get to $1 million. So imagine being a millionaire at 47 through this equation. It becomes so much more difficult though if you wait. So someone like me, I'm 35 years old. Let's check this out. If I had nothing in retirement, I start this plan. Look at that. A third of the way there. That's why it's so critical to start investing and get your money working as early as you can. All right, so the next practical thing that you should be doing right now is considering how can you increase your income. And I know this one's easy to skip over. Yeah, more money, sure. But I really, really want you to focus on how could you bring in more income tomorrow into your family, into your bank account. How would you do it? And I think that in the United States, there kind of can be a culture of complacency sometimes for many people, maybe for comfort. And I think if you were to break out of that and think, if I desperately needed money tomorrow, what would I do? I'm sure you have some creative ways, some things that you could do right now that would help you get that money if it was desperately needed. And if you want to be a millionaire, you need that same desperation towards your own goals. You need to be thinking, I have so much time. I need to be working every day to get there. What am I doing today to get there? And the first thing I would consider out of everything else is bring up your income. So what does getting your income higher look like? For many people, that's talking to their employer and saying, hey, I need more money, which is a scary conversation. I've actually had people that I employed who walked in and said, hey, I need a $30,000 raise. And you know what? I gave it to them because they presented a compelling case. I did value them. I hadn't thought about timing of next steps on talking about compensation, and they proactively brought me a plan and a case of why I should consider it, and I did. That's probably the case for many of you out there. I think people are having a really hard time keeping and retaining good team members. If you are one of those, you have leverage right now in this market to ask for more. Now, you have to be performing, you have to be creating value for your employer, but there is no harm in having the conversation. That money goes straight to your bottom line and straight to fueling these projections that we just went through. And the last thing is, let's say you know your net worth, you've started to run some calculations, and now you started to increase your income through either getting a raise, changing jobs, or adding to it through a business. The final step is you must invest your money. Investing is really, really important. It allows the money that you make, the surplus money you have, to work for you, to appreciate and value, to bring returns, and to exponentially grow and compound over time. If you're totally new to investing, please consider subscribing. I talk about how you can get started. I got really started late. I want you to avoid that mistake. So go ahead and subscribe, watch some of these videos I have, and we will keep learning together. All right, we'll be back next week. I'll talk to you then.